Hey everyone, welcome back for another episode of SpeakEasy with Eric and Cory. It's been a while.
Yeah.
I think a lot has happened. It's one of those, I don't know if it's been a month since we've done a podcast or a year. This has been a strange year.
Yeah.
So I think the last time we were talking, we were basically kind of giving the update on the big, beautiful bill, the implications to solar, saying that there's still life for solar past it. I think that's kind of more or less where we left off. So
yeah, I'm just thinking in my head, like, man, if that was the last update, like, yeah, the world's been turned upside down since then. So
yeah, it's a constant back and forth. So let's just start with like, what's new? And I guess the thing that comes to mind for me is, as a solar installation company dealing with all those hurdles, we had to come up with a pretty specific plan to get through this year and then start planning for next year. So as far as this year goes, we've filled our calendar with everyone that wanted to go prior to the tax credit for owning solar before it expired. So we've filled our calendar, and really the focus for us has been more what's next year about. How are we going to sell solar? What's best for our customers, whether it's products or financing, and just really retooling our approach. Right. So I think that's more or less what's been happening for however long it's been since the last podcast.
the 5 years or whatever it feels like. Yeah.
So I feel pretty good. I mean, if it was one of those things, like if you had a happy face chart for every day since the last time we did one of these, there'd probably be more sad faces or concerned faces than smiley ones. But I feel like the dust has settled. We have a little bit more clarity on a lot of fronts, whether it's from the what's actually in the bill, what it means to us, but also manufacturers have adjusted, financing companies have adjusted. So we've really been able to kind of like more or less dial in our strategy.
Yeah, I finally feel at this point, like from the time that the big, beautiful bill passed to now has been pretty chaotic because an entire industry was trying to figure out what the next step was. And there were multiple times where we thought we knew the path and then something else changed. And so, yes, I think we finally have an excellent, I know that this is the plan and we have a good foothold here to finish out the year strong.
So let's go right into it. What does solar look like in 2026? And I think I've got a couple points, and I'm curious if you can think of anything else, but what comes to mind for me is, one, solar absolutely still makes sense for the simple fact that, line up how much you're going to pay in utility bills over some period of time, 10, 20, 25 years, whatever you want to pull. It's an astronomical amount of money. In any form of how you buy solar, it's a lot less money. So by default, solar still makes sense.
I'm curious if any homeowners ever look at the cost of energy, like do that energy cost over a period of time without looking into alternatives, or if it's always like the solar guy bringing that to the table. But those numbers are crazy, how much money you will spend over time.
I think people think they know, but it's kind of like one of those things, like we were just talking about this the other day. It's like, I think it's a Dave Ramsey thing, like how to waste $5,000 a year, spend $13 a day that is unnecessary. I don't think people realize that we just did this for someone that had it was like a $600-ish electric bill, and their utility costs over 25 years are going to be like $350,000. I don't think anyone actually thinks and says, I have a whole mortgage to a home worth of utility bills coming to me in the next 25 years.
Right.
That's why solar's popular. So that's not going away just because a tax credit is expiring. There's no tax credit big enough in the world to offset $350,000 of obligation to a utility company.
Yes. So solar absolutely still makes sense, and it will always make sense while we have monopolistic utility companies.
So that's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, I think we got a little bit of an introduction to backup becoming mainstream because of this year's power outages. The what do they call
public
them?
Safety
PSPS, public safety power shutoffs. Those happened in like January, February, and everyone became acutely aware. Wow, my power can be turned off whenever the utility company feels like it to protect themselves from litigation, from fire starting, whatever it may be. That introduced backup to the masses, like starting getting average everyday people interested. I think in 2026, it's just going to be a continuation of that. I think pretty much backup's a conversation for every customer. So I think that might even be the the tail's going to wag the dog. People are going to come in for backup almost. And then, hey, I'm also interested in what does it do for me financially in terms of offsetting my utility bill. So I'm interested in that.
Yeah, the technology advancements have made backup just a thing. Like it's arguably silly to not do backup if you are at all at risk of your power getting shut off, because the technology advancements have made it cost effective.
Something else too, and maybe this is a little bit of a, I don't know, too bold of a statement, but I think next year might actually be the most affordable that solar has ever been. I'll go into that further, and I can explain myself.
Yeah.
Right? There's always been this like, now's the best time to go solar, and the joke is that it's always now. I kind of still believe that, and there is a couple of reasons why. One is the utility problem we mentioned. They're just getting more expensive as we go along, and the rules are worse. But I believe that the moment that we're in right now, like the access to, okay, so there's focus on, let's just say, the cost of borrowing money, and people think about loans, like interest rates, right? And everyone perceives this is not a good time. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that's the whole story, right? So I'm going to spin this in a different industry. When people say now is the best time to buy a home, right? Some people think that means the home's cheap, right? Prices are down. But I think most people are just thinking getting locked into a rate that's affordable, whether it's an interest rate, but really it's a payment, right? Like people want a mortgage payment that they can sit on for the rest of their life until the term's over and not worry about it. It's not a burden to them. It's affordable. I'm saying the same thing about solar. I think now the levelized cost of energy, that payment that you can get to get solar, it's as low as it's ever been. And part of that is just the evolution of solar, right? Some things are getting cheaper, financing is getting better, but there's also been this introduction of, in the last 12 months, there's an extra component to the tax credit based on buying American, right? That really wasn't recognized before 12 months ago.
Right.
Now there's an extra 10%. And when I say tax credit, right, we know the tax credit for ownership's expiring this year. I'm referring to the business tax credit for solar. So the leasing companies, the PPA companies, they get an extra 10% for being an American. And then the benefit of that reaches the homeowner in form of a lower payment. That's what I'm getting at, that lower cost of energy. So being able to achieve you have a $600 electric bill, and now you can have a $200, $250, whatever it may be in your situation, PPA payment. In my mind, that's the lowest it's ever been, right? So that's kind of my point.
Yeah. PPAs are very aggressive now.
It is a very attractive switch to go from one to the other.
Yep.
So again, I'm not basing this off of real numbers in front of me. It's the lowest ever been. It is my perception based on what I'm seeing that I can't remember a better time when payments have been lower.
Certainly in recent history. Yeah.
For sure.
It's been quite a long time, I would say, since I would probably go all the way back to when you could get a 12-year 1.99 interest rate loan with a very low or no dealer fee loan. That is the last time I remember stuff being as aggressive as today's PPAs.
So let's use that as like kind of like a transitional thought, right? So I think part of this episode is going to be talking about PPAs, how people should think about them, what's the full benefits that you can leverage when you again, reduce and stabilize your energy costs long term. I think we need to go back to New Day, and a lot of companies preferred ownership, right? Long term. And we did for the majority of New Day being in existence. And for reasons you just described, access to cheap money, 10 to 12-year loans with, 1.99 to 0.99% interest rates. Yeah. And with that, the payment that resulted was less than an electric bill. And then people took the tax credit and kept it themselves. I mean, it was really a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And then in 10 or 12 years, the whole thing's paid off and you just own the system. And oh, by the way, there wasn't these complicated batteries that like have different warranties that expire faster. Panels and inverters were not lasting, but 25-year warranty lasting longer than that. There wasn't a lot to think about. Ownership really was kind of like the slam dunk.
Yep.
So what's changed, right? Like, I guess I kind of previewed it in what I said, but cheap money's gone, right? 10, 12-year loans, you are not even coming close to matching your electric bill with that. Now it's 25-year loans. Now it's, if you're lucky, 8% interest to have no fees in that loan.
Yeah.
Sure, you can get a 5.99, but there's fees attached to it, so it's not really 5.99. And there's batteries, which are adding a lot of cost and adding a potential liability issue for when those fail, you have to replace them. So again, that's the shift. What we started with, like, that 10 to 12 year low interest, no batteries, not a lot of liability, to where we are now, right? And this is the focus that I want to put probably for the rest of this episode, is making people understand why ownership in today's solar, I don't think I'm being dramatic when I say this, it's a burden.
Yeah, I agree. And just to reiterate, like, it was a good thing. It was a good thing to own it. And the tide was changing, and there was a tipping point, and now I feel like it's pretty heavily weighted. Now, obviously, the tax credit going away, it's pretty heavily weighted in favor of a PPA.
Yeah. And look, it's not like a one size fits all. I don't know everyone's personal financial situation, their debt, their income, everything, all things considered. Maybe ownership for somebody can still make a great deal of sense. I'm going to talk in generalities for the average person we talk to, or I'll use myself as an example, right? Like, if right now, let's run through this. If I was doing solar in 2026 and I didn't have it, and I'm probably your typical lives in this area person, I'm 40 years old, I'm married, I have a couple kids, dog, whatever. I'm in that middle part of life where money isn't totally situated. I'm not like ready for retirement yet. Money sensitive. Cash is king. I need to build wealth long term to preserve my retirement and kids' college educations and wedding funds because I have daughters. All these things. So you've got two of those. So
yeah,
start preparing.
We need to have a big cache of money.
So when I give cash away in this world right now, in my situation, it has to be working for me and getting the maximum amount of bang. Generally, it's going into those things I described: 401k, 529, wedding funds. That's more or less where I will put my money. I'm very cautious about putting it towards things where, some people like to pay down their mortgage. They'll do an extra payment per month, or they'll take a chunk of cash and throw it at their mortgage. There's a lot of different thoughts on this, but my thought is, why buy down your mortgage, which most of us have low interest rates on, right? Versus taking that same amount of money and investing in something that's going to earn 6, 8, 10%, whatever you want to consider the historical average of the stock market to be. I think it's 8 to 10. The difference between those two is astronomical, right? If you're just looking at it from a pure investment standpoint, don't pay down debt with that. Some debt is good, and you leverage that to invest and make more money long term.
Yeah.
So why am I talking about all this? Because the same concept applies now for solar. What's the parallel, right? Like the affordable mortgage, get an affordable levelized cost of your energy. That comes through a PPA, lower that, what was the example, $600 electric bill to $250. Don't give me all your cash to pay for it. Take that cash and invest it. So you're still getting the benefit of that huge savings between utility bill and now the lower PPA bill. You're going to save the average person probably a couple $100,000 over 25 years. But you're also going to probably make a couple $100,000 by taking that money you would have paid cash for the system and investing it for 25 years.
Am I thinking about this right? That it's kind of aligned with somebody just giving you $400 a month or $350 a month to invest? I mean, yeah, essentially.
So yes, I'm talking about it in terms of chunk form, but the reality of the situation is, even if you didn't have the ability to pay cash for it and you're just simply lowering your cost of obligation to the utility company, 600 minus 250, right? You got $350 of money that you could every month invest into something, some brokerage account, and keep putting that in. But the numbers are ridiculous if you do that.
Simply getting a PPA and having that $350 differential, you take your chunk of money that you did not buy the solar system with and invest that, and then you're getting a return on the investment that you used to invest.
Right. So
that sounds pretty cool.
I think this concept most people get, right? Because one, most of us don't pay off our houses. I'm sure there's some people that can and do because of their situations. Most of us carry an affordable mortgage and then continue to put money in our 401ks, right? So the idea of carrying some debt as good debt is a common thing, right? Also investing in 401ks, trusting the stock market to build long-term retirement wealth, that's also a concept we're familiar with. I think the part that people are going to struggle with is it's just kind of programmed, not just in solar, but seemingly specifically on solar, that ownership is the only way. The other way, it's like leasing a car. Why would you ever do that? It's just a bad way to go about this.
We've seen it with a lot of other categories of whatever the big companies advertise for the industry. Basically, they create urgency, or they put out a message because they want people to think a certain way to buy a system, and it gets ingrained that they've been hearing this. And when you go on social media and you see people complaining about, oh, I got stuck in this lease, or I can't sell my house because of this lease, all problems of the past.
Yeah.
And people don't retrain their brain when things change. They're remembering all this stuff from years ago, and it's just simply not the case anymore. So yeah, there needs to be new messaging in the industry for people to understand, and it's okay. Yeah. It's okay to have a PPA. It's a good thing.
I mean, let's role play this out, right? So I'm the salesperson, you're the homeowner. I'm calling you because you were interested. Hey, Cory, saw you reached out to us. You got $1,000 electric bill. That's pretty sizable, but not unheard of. You're interested in solar. What's most important to you? What are you trying to accomplish in doing this?
I gotta save money on that. That $1,000 a month is killing me.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can provide that in pretty much any form, but I'm going to try to find the most effective way to spend your money. Did you have initial opinion, a preference of how you thought you might finance this or how you're going to purchase it?
Well, I have a lump sum of cash, and I want to just wipe that out. I want to buy the system, lower the bill, done.
All right. So is it ownership is appealing to you? Is that part of it, that owning the system to you is more?
Well, that's the smart thing. I want to do the smart thing. I want to own it. I'm not a lease guy.
Well, let me ask you this. What part of ownership appeals to you?
I have control over my system. It's my system. I say what it can and can't do. I can turn it off if I want to. I can turn it on if I want to. Nobody's going to tell me what to do.
All right, let me give you something to think about. Problem is, part of what you control is products that are going to fail outside of warranty. You got to replace them. I don't know if it's something you've thought about, but for a system that's going to offset $1,000 electric bill, you're probably looking at batteries that are going to be, I don't know, upwards of $30,000 or more to replace, and the warranty expires on some of the products we sell in 10 years. Are you prepared to spend $30,000 at year 11? Again, maybe at year 22?
It doesn't sound great, but I still want to own it.
All right. Well, I just wanted to let you know you are on the hook for that.
Okay.
If you didn't own it, the financing company is going to pay for that. So that for you, that is a liability of ownership.
Yep. What else you got?
Well, have you considered the fact that you can accomplish most of your goal of saving money by not eliminating the entire electric bill, but just lowering the cost of it? With a PPA, you're going to substantially lower that $1,000 bill. I'll bet you, just off the cuff, I could turn that into a $400 payment, $450 payment. So you're going to save $550 a month, which is a substantial portion. And just to remind you, you're still going to have an electric bill. No matter what we do here, you're still going to have to pay the utility company something, and that portion is going to grow over time. So this is not like a or B. Like you either have no electric bill or some. You're still going to have a bill. You're still going to have obligations even if you pay cash for this.
So that means that even though I am in control of my own solar system, I'm not in control of my electric bill.
You're being too nice of a customer. But yes, Cory. But where I was really going with that is, right, like attack most of the problem by levelizing the cost of energy down to, in this example, $450, right? Down from $1,000. And you're thinking, well, I still have $450. Well, we're going to make up for that because that amount of cash you were just going to pay me, let's just say that I don't know, that system's going to cost $75,000. I'm making up a number.
For $1,000 electric bill,
yeah,
probably.
$75,000 you're going to hand me. Do you have any idea what $75,000 might do in a typical, I don't know, anything invested in the stock market, an index fund, a target fund, anything, historical average? Do you have any idea what 75 grand might do over 25 years?
Probably a lot.
Yeah,
that's
I don't have a calculator in front of me, Cory. But if I had to guess, I'm pretty confident it's over $500,000. It's probably between that and $750,000. That is a lot more savings than if you just pay cash to buy down the entire electric bill. So I just want you to think about this, right? Like, why do you want to own it? There's a lot of liability in owning it. You're on the hook for replacements. You can do more with your money. You can invest it elsewhere. I really want you to think of this a little bit more, maybe like an analogy of, would you pay off your house? Do you have the ability to pay off your house right now?
No.
If you had the cash to do it, would you pay off your house? Maybe.
Yeah.
Have be a conversation. Well, that conversation should probably be the same. Sweetheart, I don't think we should do this.
That money
we should probably
of,
invest that money long term and make more money with our money. So anyways, I hope I gave you something to think about, because the paradigm's shifting, and this conversation should be about how do you help your family the most long term? How do you generate the most wealth for your family? How do you protect them as you head into retirement? And I believe this is the best path. But what I can't do, I can't remove if you have an emotional component that makes you want to own something. That's something that you're going to have to, talk to your spouse about. You're going to have to work through, because I get it. Owning something has appeal, but there's a lot of things you don't own, right? You don't own your water bill. You don't own your gas bill. Like, those are things you're still reliant on other people.
I guess you're right. For one, this customer has learned a lot, and I'm going to go ahead and sign him for that PPA.
Oh, I appreciate that very much. But no, I think that's more or less the conversation. And that last piece that I said, the emotional component, I get it. Mostly because I also had that. I own my solar. Mm-hmm. You own your solar. I believed it was the right thing then. I still believe it was the right thing that we did. But if you asked me in 2026, would I give up 75 grand or whatever the number was? No, I would just get a low cost of power and I would invest that cash. I absolutely 100% would, because it's the right financial decision on average. If the only metric is how do I create the most money with my money, which I'm pretty sure that's what most of us are trying to do.
So you're giving the example of 75 grand. I don't know if that's our average customer. Is there a point, a system cost, that lump sum of cash, 25, 30, 50, whatever, 15. Is there any point on that scale where it doesn't make sense? You should pay cash for it, or investing that money?
My gut feeling is no, because as you're lowering the system cash price, the utility bill 25-year obligation, that $350 that we referenced for a $600 electric bill, it's going to go down, right? So as that goes down, your money isn't having as much value. So even if it's creating less over here on the investment side in the stock market, so is the value of offsetting a lower electric bill. So I think they're kind of work more or less correlative.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So just something to think about. And this is a different approach. And if it was just simply, I don't know, paying cash or getting a loan versus a PPA, yeah, you're going to pay more when it's a lease or PPA and you don't own it. But the extra component is don't give up that cash, right?
Yeah.
Let's put it towards investment and making the most money. Now, maybe somebody's like, well, okay, cool. I get your point on payments. Why don't I just make a loan out of this, right? What does that look like if I do 25 years worth of loan versus 25 years of a lease? I bet you they look kind of similar. Like, why wouldn't I just do that and own it? Do you know what the answer to that would be? Or what would your answer be?
Well, for starters, you mentioned the liability of replacing the components.
Still own that.
So you own it, and at year, whatever, call it year 11 for the 10-year warranty product, you're on the hook. If it fails at year 11, that's your responsibility, and that's a big investment at that point.
When I generally look at like the total number at the bottom after 25 years for loan versus PPA, they tend to be similar-ish when you factor in replacement of things like batteries after warranty. They're similar numbers. But at the same time, like I still don't want that liability. There's additional liabilities beyond just the batteries. But here's something most people don't know about PPAs. Written into at least the PPAs that we use, there is right there in the contract a buyout. And there's a schedule of what it costs where you can own it. You can still own a PPA. But what's most attractive to me is at year 25, the number that's written there is like $3,000 to $4,000 on average. So at the very end of this 25-year lease, after you've avoided all the replacements of the batteries and things out of warranty, you've shielded yourself from that liability, that burden of ownership, now you can own it if you want to. And when you factor that $3,000 into it, I'm willing to bet most of the time, to answer the question I asked a few minutes ago, the PPA total cost over 25 years plus that $3,000 or $4,000 buyout is lower than having a loan that whole time and replacing product. So this is why I believe the PPA plus investing cash, if you have that ability, is the best option. Or to your point, investing the savings per month and generating more wealth that way.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're starting at the same place and you got to pick a path for this race of solar life. And you're either going to take the PPA path or the loan path, but you're ultimately going to end up at the same place. 25-year loan, you can own it in either scenario for a similar cost. But on one path, you have liability of potential replacements of not just the batteries, by the way, like the entire system, whatever issues come up, you're going to be on the hook for. Or you take the PPA route and you're putting your own cash out over here. And PPA route, you're not on the hook for any of the components, and you can take that cash and invest it.
Yeah. Also, I had just thought of this now. If the system goes down, right? Sure, under warranty, they're going to come. The contractor or the manufacturer is going to help you get that system back up and running. Does anybody pay for the time that it's down? Lost power?
No.
Not in ownership.
For devil's advocate, I'm struggling to I'm actually trying to let's be on ownership team here. Let's come up with some positives of ownership.
When you go to a dinner party, you can say you own it when everyone else doesn't. So you are.
No, I'm trying to come up with a real reason. I'm honestly trying to come up with something because I own my solar system and am sort of feeling like I have batteries. I'm like, I wish I had a PPA.
Unfortunately, I just thought of another downside. I'm sorry, I can't help your argument. You pay me cash for the system. You don't heed my advice. You don't do the levelized cost of energy and invest your money. Year 6, hey, I have this opportunity to move out of state. Now we got to sell our home. What happens?
Can you recoup that money?
You have to recoup that money in ownership through increased value in your home, which there's no definitive answer for if that happens or not. Real estate agents really don't like solar, I don't think. They're not pushing it like this is an asset. Most time they look at it as something that just an extra hurdle for them to get their sale, which isn't totally true, but that's more or less, I think, how they view it. What happens if you have a PPA and you go to sell your home? You transfer it. The next person gets a lower cost of energy, and they're probably like, woohoo, I got a lower bill because I have this.
Anyway, positives.
Nope,
for
sorry,
the
I couldn't come up with it. I wanted to.
I actually thought of another negative. Similar.
This is not going well for your argument.
Similar to your thing. Year 6. I'll use the same number. I've got a red light on my system. I'm gonna call the installer. Oh, they're out of business. I have no more warranty for the installation. Now you still have product warranties at year 6, but now you're also on the hook for maintenance or repair or whatever.
You got to call a company like us, and we'll fix it and charge you. But what happens if you are in a system you don't own and a financing company owns it? Something goes wrong, they're going to fix it.
Right.
And this is not that's not a pie in the sky scenario. That's real.
Oh, that's real.
There's so many contractors that, their warranty doesn't necessarily hold because they don't last.
We already service so many. So that is, I'm struggling.
So let me give you I actually
You have a positive?
No.
Oh.
What I actually did, I don't do too many customer calls, sales calls, but I did one today. And it was very much this scenario. It was they wanted to pay cash. They were pretty fixed on cash. I knew calling them they wanted to pay cash. I felt obligated to show them, and I prepared basically a spreadsheet that kind of had the cost of utility, the cost of paying cash, the cost of the PPA, and then here's your investment column if you use that cash, like we've been talking about this whole episode, to make you more money. And more or less walked them through the exercise, what's important, saving money. Okay, great. I'm going to show you something that I think you're going to like. And walked them through the whole thing and asked them, do you think my numbers are wrong? Do you disagree with this logic of using cash to reinvest versus just simply paying cash for your solar system? And they're like, no, we've thought about this and we agree that is a way to generate a lot of money. And I'm like, okay,
cool. So you sold it?
So, well, I said, all right then. So, what are your feelings? Like, well, we still want to own it. And then I was like, okay, well, I got to ask this at least. What about ownership appeals to you? Do you agree with me that these batteries are going to potentially fail at year 11 and then again at year 22 before we get to that 25-year marker that everyone likes to use to judge how much savings there are in a system like this? And no, we don't disagree. You have to more or less probably expect that something could fail right out of warranty, right? And okay, so you're prepared to have that burden, that liability, you have to pay for it. Yeah. You understand if you sell your home, you're going to have to recoup the value of the cash you laid out in advance. You're gonna have to recoup it back in the home sale. You get that? Yeah. Can you tell me why you want to own the system? Give me reasons why you want to own. I'm asking them, and we just really want to own the system. So at risk of being pushy and going too far with it, they had told me it was about money. I showed them a way to, I think on paper, their exact scenario was that they were going to make an additional $270,000 in this scenario over 25 years. and they didn't want it. So I don't think it was because they didn't believe the numbers. They agreed that this makes sense. It was a comfort thing. It was an emotional thing. It was we've made our mind up thing because we believe ownership's the best path. So that's what I'm saying. I don't know how to bridge that gap.
Yeah.
I don't know how to make people comfortable with changing their mindset on ownership, because generally we think of ownership as good, leasing bad, right? The car example, and I get that.
Well, it's ingrained in people's minds in other facets of life too, right? Like renting a home versus buying a home, right? Well, that is an investment, but a solar system itself, the investment that you're making is a component to lower your liability to the energy company. So I think it's a different metric, but people are applying the same logic to it, and they shouldn't be.
At the end of paying off a home, homes almost always appreciate in value, right? You know that, just course of time, just like the stock market.
Right.
Not to prove my point more, but like homes and stock market traditionally go up and to the right over time. Not always predictable. There's some valleys, but if you look at the chart zoomed out, up and to the right. So homes, yes, they will at the end of it, when you own it, you sell it, you make a ton of money. Solar system, when you pay it off, you're banking on, I don't know, I guess that someone values it in the transactional sale of your home, and you're going to recoup that value. I don't think it's a great analogy. And if I wanted to really dive into that analogy, right, like there are times when I think renting could make more sense. So if rent was low levelized cost of ownership, and mortgage rates were super high, and home values were overpriced, and there was a bunch of instability in the economy, I would argue that renting low and doing the same thing, investing your money in that time period is better. There's no one size fits all for own versus rent. And right now what we're saying is, I think the consensus is right now we're in a period where I think not owning the system is the correct decision for the majority of people to get maximum financial benefit.
Yeah, I mean, you said it, like it depends on the market, renting versus owning the home, and I 100% agree. And then apply that to solar. It depends on the market, and right now, the market dictates rent. PPA.
Do you think like tonight, like going back to the people that I pitched, do you think like they're lying in bed and like they've turned the TV off and like the light clicks on? It's like, sweetheart, did we make the right decision? Like, can we leave 200 grand, 300 grand on the table?
I hope so, because your argument is very valid, and I want to see everybody invest their money appropriately and make a lot of money. And the logic, I didn't see any flaws in it. I mean, I saw, spoiler alert, I saw your proposal and all your numbers and the graphs that you did, and I don't see why somebody would just choose to not make hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Well, there's some leap of faith in this, right? Like, is the stock market going to actually do that thing?
But then you had the graph at the end.
Well, right. Show me any period of time where the stock market, 10, 20 years, whatever, is where it didn't perform with returns, right? And it doesn't exist. Not long term. You zoom out long enough. Right. We're talking about a 25-year window. The returns are there. So, yeah, it's I think we're going to be in for a little bit of an uphill battle with some people where that's ingrained in them. But, I'm prepared for that fight, because I feel like our obligation is always to advise people, consult them on what the best thing they can do when they get solar. And that is a shifting thing over time. It has shifted in the last couple of years. We're going to evolve and continue to, educate, consult on what we feel is best. And I don't know, I'm always open to adjusting, but it's hard to imagine right now a scenario where I would want to put up my cash for a system when I could simply just levelize the cost of energy.
Yeah, I agree.
So I don't really have any other topics for today. I think this is kind of what I wanted to get into, because I think this is, it's not particularly an interesting topic, but I think it is, it's fun to talk about, right? Because you get a little bit into human psychology here and how they make buying decisions, which we know is sometimes emotional. It's not always about numbers, because that person I was pitching, if they were honest, the way they said this is a numbers decision, then they made a horrible numbers decision. So it's clearly not just about the numbers, right? Yeah. There's an emotional component here, and we're humans. It's part of it. And I hope that we can convey this message. I hope more people get comfortable going solar, get comfortable maximizing this investment, and we'll keep fighting the good fight.
Yep, that's all we can do.
I think so.
You're empty.
I am empty. Well, until next time, thanks for joining us for another episode of Speakeasy with Eric and Cory. We'll see you next time.